I don't think we're going to get an extended clock, Grant.
Especially for a day like today. What's up, guys? It is April 30th. Tomorrow, I don't know if you've seen that picture, but like Justin Timberlake says, it's gonna be May. So last day of April, crazy that we're a month into the season already. But we're gonna be talking about today's games, including the 4 postponements on this InsidersTV Daily Fantasy MLB show, sponsored by the wonderful folks there at FantasyElite, the app that you can download in the iStore. Why did I say iStore? I just want to put I in front of everything.
It's like the Daily Fantasy WNBA show all over again.
Yeah. Cool, Davis. In the Apple Store for your iPhone, iPad, or iTouch. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to the guys that need no introduction, but we will still introduce them. Davis Maddock, Dan Gasper, a.k.a. Mr. Tuttle, and Derek Carty, all hailing from FantasyInsiders.com. Guys, how goes it today with all these postponements?
It's not too bad. The only guy I really want in a postponed game is Greinke for pitching and Giordano for pitching. That's about it.
Yeah, Greinke was kind of down on my list today. Giordano wasn't really even on my radar so much.
Heresy.
I'm not I'm not overly concerned. I like Kendrick today actually in the postponed game, as like a cheap, GPP contrarian kind of pitcher. But aside from that, I'm not too upset.
Well, we should be clear too, Maddock. Those games aren't even postponed yet. Those are weather games, but
I really don't think Kansas City's going to happen.
I think there's a decent chance. I mean, obviously you live in Kansas.
I'm looking outside at rain right now.
You're an hour and a half from the stadium. That tells you nothing.
Weather doesn't move. Is weather just a static event that stays in one location and has no impact?
Are you sure it's moving in the right direction?
No.
The game starts.
You're looking outside and seeing rain.
I'm also.
Right now.
Do you want me to go outside and do like the little like test and figure out which direction it's heading?
Yes, I need the barometric pressure, what direction it's heading, to figure out
okay.
if the game's going to go or not. Otherwise, you looking outside tells us nothing.
Okay.
I don't think the game even holds that much relevance anyway. I don't have a single hitter on my list from the game today. I don't think the pitchers. I mean, maybe I think Hutchison maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, the biggest thing with that one is pitchers on Draft Street. Because their price, like Giordano, is really cheap on Draft Street, and Hutchison's really cheap as well.
He's $10K. I think you have to use him on Draft Street if that game happens.
Yeah, but like Derek said, that's really the only relevance otherwise.
I didn't think the game was going to happen, though, Davis.
I said if I gave it a caveat, David. Isn't it the part when you're
it's
supposed
sprinkling
to be...
outside, though.
Aren't you supposed to be doing puns right now, David?
Yeah.
That's what it says on the actual outline for the show. It says David does puns. So
I don't think that's my outline. That might have been your outline.
Yeah, that's what it says on my outline.
Oh, okay. You may have added to the outline. But no, I mean, I don't want to rain on your parade, but I'm just saying that if you're going to be already like canceling out this game, you might want to take a more.
Well, Tuttle is apparently not, because he just drafted Drew Hutchinson against me on DFS Elite, so he thinks it's happening.
That's right.
Well, yeah, we'll get to the fantasy. We'll be drafting, I guess I should say. Davis is drafting against Tuttle. Last match on Monday, Tuttle won. I mean,
no,
did not win. Davis won, so we'll be bringing up the results throughout the show. Let's move right along, though, into pitching. I'll pull up the weather here in a bit, and we can talk about that some. But let's just talk about pitching right now.
Okay, well, I'll let you guys talk about your top guy. Let's just assume that every weather game, even if it's a 30% weather game, is not going to happen, because that's the way I like to approach it until we get a more definitive word. So let's pretend every game that's currently questionable for weather is not going to be played. Who is your number one pitcher, Tuttle?
Well, I guess it doesn't even matter. I'm going Singrani as my number one either way, I think. Even though I absolutely hate the thought of rostering him. As Derek pointed out in his article today, he's lost, or he hasn't lost, but he hasn't had very good control throughout his start of the season, but he still has decent peripherals. And I guess Derek can elaborate on what he saw out of Singrani. It sounds like he's actually changing up or not relying on his fastball as much. Do you think that's actually going to help him in the long run, Derek?
I think in the long run it's going to help him because I stayed away from him entirely in all my expert full season leagues this year just because he was throwing his fastball like 80 or 85% of the time last year, and you just can't succeed as basically a one pitch pitcher as a major league starter. So I was staying away from him. This year he's cut it down. He's only throwing his fastball like 70% of the time, which is still a lot. But it's not it's not as bad. He's throwing his other pitches a little more. The only problem is that he can't control his other pitches as well, so he's walking more batters. He's walking more than I would expect him to. He's walking almost 5 per 9, which is too high. But, I still have some reservations with him, but the matchup today is good. So, for one day, I can see him. He's definitely on my radar at the very least. He's not my top guy, but he's in the mix.
Okay, then on two pitcher sides, I think that there's probably a discussion between let's talk about Aaron Harang, because I think Harang is a really interesting case. His xFIP is in the threes, but I think his ERA right now is .69, and he's against a Marlin offense that is kind of anemic on the road, but they're actually like a pretty good, solid hitting team at home. And so I think that there's a legitimate conversation tonight between should you target Marlins hitters versus Harang, or should you target Harang versus Marlins hitters? Which side of the aisle do you fall on, Derek?
I'm definitely on the target Harang versus Marlin hitters. I'm super against home road splits, especially when they fly in the face of the park factors. I mean, Miami is the worst park for hitters in the entire game of baseball. So if Marlins hitters are hitting better at home, what we're looking at is April sample size fluke. I mean, in general, you should expect Marlins hitters to perform worse at home. They're going to get some sort of home field advantage, but home field advantage isn't big enough to overcome. It's not even close to big enough to overcome, such a huge park factor. So I mean, the only thing Harang's on my list. He was number 2 on my list today, but his price is really high in certain places because of his ERA and because of his xFIP. I mean, his ERA is under 1, which is too. I mean, obviously it's too low. Even his 3.77 xFIP is probably a little bit too low. So he's being overpriced based on his actual skill set, but the matchup today kind of offsets it a little bit.
He is the most expensive pitcher on DraftKings.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Just forget about him there. It's just.
I think I'm on the different side from you. It sounds like you don't expect Harang to be bad tonight, but I think
I expect Harang to be pretty good. I don't expect Harang to be number 1 pitcher price tag good.
Yeah, and I actually don't at all mind taking Marlins hitters tonight. I particularly like Yelich leading off, and on DraftKings, there is a super night. He just has a great price on DraftKings Stanton has a great price tag on DraftKings tonight. What side of the aisle are you on with Harang?
I'm on the probably just avoid the game altogether side because I really don't know. I think Harang's performing way over his head. Obviously, there's no way I'm touching Harang on DraftKings as a pitcher. And I just don't know. I mean, Ben, Natural Slugger, seems to think this is real for Harang. He actually, his speculations that he's on PEDs, which is very possible. You could have like
that's such a Ben claim to make.
he's predicting a Bartolo Colon type suspension at some point in time throughout this year. So I'm not targeting Harang to hit against, nor am I targeting him to roster tonight. But I do think it should be noted that, generally speaking, the Marlins roster does struggle more with right-handed pitchers, but Harang really is. I think he's actually a reverse splits guy, if not just very, very close to being neutral. So I think that works in their favor a little bit as opposed to facing a normal righty with major splits. But yeah, I'm probably just avoiding this game altogether.
Yeah, and I don't think that's like a terrible idea at all. But I definitely am erring on the side of using some Marlins hitters right now, just because they're so cheap and some of them are in a good spot. I think I actually on FanDuel right now, one pitcher site, the guy that I'm using is Nate Eovaldi, and Dink already told me that I was really stupid for doing that. So how stupid is using Nate Eovaldi on a one pitcher site tonight, Derek?
It's pretty stupid.
Pretty dumb? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing you can say about it is that he is at home. He's in a good park. But that's, factored into his price to an extent already. And Atlanta's rocking a very righty-heavy lineup. The only lefties they have in there are Hayward and Freeman. But Atlanta's offense is good. Eovaldi, I'm not particularly sold on. He's not anywhere at all on my list today.
Yeah, what's the reasoning behind it, Davis?
He throws hard and Atlanta strikes out a lot.
Yeah, he throws hard, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, you asked, that's
yeah. I mean, he's been really good this
year.
year. I guess, we could just be seeing him kind of making good on some of the hype he's always come with. But, even in the minors, he's never put up a strikeout rate as high as he has now. And he's a guy that scouts of, like, more than the stats guys have. So it's possible that's what we're seeing. Maybe I'll take a closer look at him, see if there's anything different that he's doing this year. But I don't know. I've never quite been on Eovaldi in the way a lot of guys have been.
Yeah, and that's fair. It's just like, obviously a lot of the guys that I like in baseball, I get from reading Spore stuff and Doug Thornburg, and they both really like Eovaldi. So that's sort of where that comes from. As far as
Thornburg's awesome.
Yeah, he is. He's great. You learn, for anyone out there, if you want to learn more about pitching and how to evaluate it, there's no such thing as a pitching podcast on iTunes. It's really good. As far as GPP options tonight, Tuttle, who are you looking at?
I'd go back to Cingrani. I think he might be my top overall option.
Well,
in general.
that's cheating because I said GPP option.
But I'm saying I think he's probably I think he's your highest upside option today too, which is what you're looking for in a GPP. He certainly has risk associated with him, which is why I'm a little hesitant to name him my top overall starting pitcher. But I think he definitely gets the tag pretty easily for the top GPP option, just because of the roster or the lineup he's facing and his K upside.
Yeah, I can definitely see Cingrani as a GPP pick, especially since he does kind of have, the highest K upside of the guys that I'd be considering. I think Harang on places that aren't like DraftKings and Star Street, where he's just ridiculously overpriced, I think he's a solid GPP option. I think Tim Hudson is, he seems kind of under the radar today as a GPP option. I really like Hudson in general. He doesn't strike a lot of guys out, which is, a problem, particularly on certain sites. But he's a very good pitcher. He's up against a weak offense. He's playing at home. I like Hudson in terms of run prevention and potential for a win today.
Yeah, I would say if you guys disagree with my point that Eovaldi is like at all safe for cash games, I would say because he is striking out a lot more guys this year, he does make a pretty solid GPP option. And with his tag on FanDuel, you can play whoever you want. Like you can play Posey, Donaldson, Tulo, and Carlos Gonzalez. Like really without breaking a sweat. So if you think you can like nail your hitters tonight, I think Eovaldi is the guy you want to go with for a GPP on FanDuel because you can take whoever you want with him.
Yeah, and I think all the batters you listed are obviously in good matchups too. So I don't think this necessarily applies to today. But my word of advice would be caution. Sometimes you end up paying for bats just to pay for bats, which is kind of what you have to be careful about as far as going so cheap on one starting pitcher site, because then you'll end up putting guys out and that aren't in ideal matchups. All the guys you listed actually are in ideal matchups, so I see your strategy there, and it does certainly make sense. But that's just something to be careful for, in the future.
I think too, Drew Hutchison looks like a really strong GPP play today. He was a guy who kind of came into the season, at least in the circles that I was running in, with a lot of hype. He's got good stuff. He's converting it into awesome numbers this year. He's striking out 11 batters per 9. He's not walking that many, and he's playing in Kauffman Stadium today, which is a pretty extreme pitcher's park against an offense that isn't necessarily bad. It's average-ish maybe. So I think Hutchison is a solid GPP play today.
Okay.
Weather permitting, of course.
Weather permitting, of course. At this point, if anyone in the chat would like to ask us questions about pitching, it would be an ideal time to do so if there's anything that we haven't answered. And then, did you write pitchers up today, Derek, or did Ben?
I did.
Okay. Who were your relief options for Draft Street today?
Kimbrel. Because yeah, I mean, I like the Braves' chances of winning today. Over/under was pretty low. He's awesome, and he hasn't pitched in quite a few days. So even if there isn't a save opportunity, he
might get some more.
Come in and then just strike out 3 Marlins in a row.
Here's a Draft Street specific question again for you, Derek. It looks like Hutchison and Ventura are pretty evenly priced there. Who would you rather have?
I'd take Hutchison.
I think that's fair. I mean, certainly the opposing lineup's not.
The Royals suck.
They don't. The bad thing about them is they just don't strike out.
They suck. I'm so sick of everyone trying to tell me that the Royals are good. Like, I don't believe any of you.
The Royals are pretty good. The Royals are not a terrible offense. The Royals are a decent offense. The Toronto Blue Jays are a pretty damn good offense. Even though, they're, used to playing in the Rogers Center, which is a huge hitter's park, and it's a big swing today. I still think they're a good offense. They're pretty intimidating. So even though Ventura is a better pitcher than Hutchison, I think the matchup, skews a little bit more in favor of Hutch.
Yep. All right, well, I mean, that's fair. They don't strike out a lot. They just weakly ground out to short. That's like the Royals' move. It's pretty great to watch. It makes for super exciting baseball. I'll tell you that much. Does anyone else have anything that they need to say about pitchers?
It looks like we got
Zimmerman's
a
your cash
question
game
there.
play today. We didn't talk about him at all.
About who?
Jordan Zimmerman.
Yeah, some guys in chat want to know about your thoughts on that too, on Zim.
Yeah. Talk about
Zim's
him.
the obvious cash game play today.
I mean, I would so much rather go Cingrani, because Zimmerman just doesn't strike that many guys out.
He's up against Houston, though. Houston strikes out a lot, and they're terrible.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's fair, but the Cubs are terrible, too, and they strike out a lot more.
It's just, it's hard. No matter who you're going to play tonight as your number one starting pitcher, you're just not really comfortable with it. I mean, Zimmerman's got probably the best matchup, but just looking at his game logs and his inability to strike guys out in general, he's got the matchup, but you're not going to feel easy about it no matter who you roster tonight.
Always got to take the guy who throws harder. That's like rule number 1, right?
No. Velocity is so overrated. Like, velocity is important,
but velocity is
sexy. There's so much more to it than just velocity. And Zimmerman throws 94. I mean, Zimmerman has the stuff to strike guys out. He has the stuff to strike out a batter per inning. It's kind of just the way he approaches hitters that is why he doesn't do it. And this year he is striking out a batter per inning. I think I want to look into that and see if he's changed anything to kind of make better use of his stuff.
I'm avoiding all of this. I'm really, I don't care what you guys say. I'm taking Eovaldi in my cash games. And when I bitch about it on Twitter at 10 o'clock.
Cash game Eovaldi?
Yep.
I mean, maybe GPP I can see, but...
Nope. I'm doing it in my cash games. I don't care. I'm
move.
Because because Cingrani is super frustrating because once he gets in a little bit of trouble, he's in a lot of trouble because really all he can do is just try and throw his fastball harder. And then if Zimmerman's not Kane, guys... It's just kind of gross, and I mean, I guess if that game goes, I'm playing Greinke for sure. But let's move on. Let's talk about hitters. Let's go to Vegas over unders. I mean, did any of the games jump out to you guys immediately in terms of hitting environment and the over under reflection on that?
Not really. I didn't see anything jump out of the ordinary. I mean, you have your high over-unders or higher over-unders where you would expect them, in Arizona. Obviously, the Nationals are going to have a pretty high team total against Oberholzer. But other than that, nothing really jumped out at me.
I would say the reverse with Colorado and Arizona. I think 8.5 looks low for what I would expect out of those two teams and those two starters. Out of Lyles and Colementor, 8.5 is the over-under. I think that might kind of be broadcasting this game is not as hitter friendly as you'd think because on the surface you're thinking Tulo, Cargo, maybe whoever ends up in the leadoff spot for the Rockies. I don't think we have a lineup yet, but that kind of signals to me that maybe last night with the Tampa Bay Boston game there was basically the starting lineup for Boston the first time through the order against Bedard they just sucked because they were getting squeezed the entire game.
I want to go on a little mini stat rant here, if that's acceptable.
Oh, it's acceptable.
In the chat room, Steve says some pitchers don't care about your fantasy teams and prefer grounding guys out to keep pitch counts low. Biggest myth that I see is that strikeouts inflate pitch counts. Completely false. Not even a little bit true at all. So,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Could you just
break it down? Give us a lesson here, Professor.
Yeah,
Cardi.
I mean, we still have to hit hitters and a lot of other stuff, but I think this is important. I want to hear this this little mini rant that you have.
Basically, you think that strikeouts are going to inflate pitch counts because it takes 3 pitches to strike a guy out, and in theory it can take 1 pitch to get a ground out, but in practice it never takes 1 pitch to get a ground out. I mean, you end up throwing a lot of pitches if you're not going for the strikeouts. You end up nibbling. You throw some balls. You end up walking some guys. And, in the end, you end up, strikeouts are pretty much the exact same as if you're, pitching to contact like that. What really inflates pitch counts is walks. So if you're walking a lot of guys, that's where your pitch count's going to go up. But strikeouts aren't going to have any effect on it. I'm going to actually post a link to a study that was done a long time ago by a guy I used to work with at the Hardball Times about it.
Very nice. It makes sense.
Well, that's pretty cool.
The walk.
That's why you turn in to Fantasy Insiders TV, so you can learn little tidbits about that.
Did you say turn in or tune in?
Yeah. No, tune in, turn in. It's the same thing.
There's this graph right here. I'm going to post it in the chat and look at it, and it's just it's like you're getting hit over the head with a frying pan.
I like the title, The Casimir Conundrum.
That's pretty funny. So on our little handy-dandy outline here, it tells us that rather than ending with stacks today, we're going to start with them. So, Mr. Tuttle, what stacks would you go with today in a large field tournament or on FanDuel when you can choose 4 hitters from the same team?
Well, your national stack's going to be your obvious one. I think you're going to see most people on a lot of national players. The one that I'm going to probably ride a decent amount tonight, I'm going to hop on the Ranger bats against our journeyman Jesse Chavez. But yeah, I think nationals are probably the safest or the one that you're going to see most people on. But if you want to kind of try something a little different, I think the Rangers are in a decent spot.
Derek?
I like San Francisco a lot today. They'd be my top stack. Robbie Erlin, not a particularly good pitcher, fly ball oriented, so especially extreme fly ball oriented. So the Giants guys that have power, Posey, Morse, Pence, I'm all about them today. I think Washington looks good too.
You're one of the only like big fantasy guys that does not like Erlin's skills. He's pretty popular around the industry.
Is he really?
I mean, I wouldn't say popular, but he gets thrown out as like a pitching streamer a lot by a lot of guys.
I kind of liked Erlin a little bit coming up. Like, even though he doesn't throw particularly hard, he throws under 90. He's got a decent little curveball. But I don't know. He doesn't do it for me. All those fly balls kind of, they scare me a little bit.
I like the Athletics bats tonight versus Robbie Ross. I think I would rather take the A's bats than the Rangers bats, honestly.
I would too. The A's were second or third on my list. I think I kind of had them a toss-up: Washington bats against Oberholzer or Oakland bats against Ross. I've talked about Ross before. Basically, I think he's got a lot of weapons to deal with same-handed pitchers. I recommended him against Seattle, I think, a while back because they're lefty-heavy, and he has a lot of weapons or at least one good weapon to get rid of lefties. But against righties, he really doesn't have a whole lot that I like. So I think, Oakland righties, especially given the huge park jump, I think they're really good today. Donaldson, Cespedes, Norris.
Yeah, I'm definitely on. Again, we can just say right from that right into the discussion of catchers, second base, and shortstop. I'm gonna keep. I think tonight I'm finally gonna stick with my just play whoever is starting at catcher for the A's theory, because together their OPS is north of 850. So if you just take them in the right spot, when they have the platoon going in their favor, you're gonna be pretty happy. But I bet that the top play for both of you is probably Posey. Is that right, Tuttle?
I'm playing Derek Norris. I think Posey probably on paper is the top play, but I'm playing Derek Norris in that matchup.
Posey's the top play, but I think it's hard to pass up Norris for his price tag, and his matchup is really good. So Posey's the top overall. If you have money just to spend, spend it on Posey, but you can definitely go Norris and be very happy tonight.
Yeah, it's worth noting that Norris is a much better hitter than J-So.
Oh yeah.
His OPS this season is over 1,000. Small sample size or whatever, but it's an OPS greater than 1,000. That's a big deal.
J-So's a nice little hitter, but he doesn't have the power Norris does, or even the hitting skills really. He'll take a walk. He's a solid little player, but Norris kind of comes with the pedigree. He's got some upside, and he's been really good this year. So I like Norris.
Do they pinch hit for Norris the same way they do for J-So?
Yeah.
They do. And
they platoon.
That is always frustrating when you take the A's catchers, but at the end of the year, I'm going to track this and see how you would have done if you would have just played them on opposing days and see, I bet that combined they're probably a top 5, DFS fantasy catcher. Just with how often they get on base.
Like you brought up yesterday, they're going to get the right side of the platoon splits every single game that they play. So they have that advantage going for them right away. I don't know if you watched the game last night, the Oakland Rangers game last night.
They're blacked out for me on my MLB TV package.
Norris he probably had 2 of the hardest hit balls out of every game last night. Just absolutely ripped 2 line drive doubles to left center field. It's beautiful to watch that guy play because he's just so powerful.
Yeah. Well, I think that's who I'm going with tonight. Is there anyone else you guys want to talk about outside of Posey is the top play, but Norris is the value option?
Yeah, if you really want to go even cheaper than that, I think Brian Pena is a decent option. As just a super cheap punt. But those are my guys that I'm on today. I think actually Sandy Leone too, another punt. He's in there for Washington today.
I don't even know who that is. I know that my punt catcher yesterday had 4.5 FanDuel points. Brian Holiday for the win.
Nice.
I love punting catcher. I know that Leone was talking about yesterday. He likes him more because they have the platoon advantage more often, but punting and catcher is always great. Let's talk about the 8 guys who qualified second base for the Washington Nationals. Got Espinosa, Rendon, and Kevin Franzen.
Franson, yeah.
Yeah, which one of those guys are you taking, Derek?
All of them. No, I mean, I like all of them. I think if I'm going to go with one, it's going to be Rendon, because Oberholzer is kind of a... Let me make sure I'm not putting my foot in my mouth here. I'm pretty sure he's a pretty extreme fly ball guy. Rendon has the best power. They're getting a good park jump there. So, yeah, he's pretty extreme fly ball guy, like 35% ground ball percentage. So, yeah, Rendon is my favorite pick of the 3.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, was Oberholzer at all the prospect, or does he just suck?
He doesn't suck, but he's, well below average. He wasn't, like, really a legit prospect, so.
Okay. Tuttle, are you looking at any second baseman outside of those 3?
Let's see who I have. Rendon makes the top of my list. I think Ryan Rayburn you could play if you're looking to really punt the position.
Everyone just wants to play Ryan Rayburn because he has that 2.2 tag. And I mean, it does let you do like basically whatever, but he just sucks. He's
had a bad year. He's a decent hitter overall. Historically, especially against lefties. He's got decent numbers against lefties historically. That's why you'll see him in the lineup really much only against lefties. But he gets Wilson today. He's a decent, just really cheap option. D. Gordon, I could see if you wanted to make the argument, plug him in. That game looks to be clearing up, at least according to chat.
I like Gordon a lot, but he's shortstop, right?
Second base eligible.
No, he's second. If that game goes, I'm gonna play D. Gordon, I think.
Oh yeah, I like Gordon a lot today.
Yeah.
Davis, can you do me a favor?
Not as much as Rendon, but I do like Gordon today.
Davis, do me a favor and look outside your window.
1 second. Yeah. Oh, hey, while I do this, Derek, you have a request in the chat to talk for like 15 seconds about Dallas Keuchel's improvement this year.
You know what? I'm not going to talk about him yet because it's actually on my list of things to look into. I've seen he has made improvements this year. I don't have a definitive answer where it's coming from yet.
All right. It stopped raining, but it is still overcast in Kansas. So that's what we got going on. Let's talk about shortstops. Tulowitzki, Ian Desmond. I think I'm just paying up for Tulo right now. Like he is just mashing the ball, and he's so good when he's healthy. Anyways, are either one of you guys leaning towards playing Tulo in your cash games or no?
Not really.
Can you elaborate?
I don't know. I'm not big on the matchup today. He's on the road. Arizona isn't. Chase Field isn't as big of a pitcher's park as most people, or hitter's park as most people tend to give it credit for. He doesn't have the platoon advantage. I don't know. I think there's better options. I think Desmond looks like a really good shortstop play today.
Talk about Ian Desmond, Tuttle.
I like Desmond. He's obviously going to have more power, and he does have more power against left-handed, so he's got the platoon advantage there. He's got the park effect going in his favor, hitting in Houston. So I do like him. Another guy I do like as well that Ben touched on would be Elvis Andrews. I think he's in a decent spot. He obviously doesn't have the platoon advantage, but he does. Norris isn't necessarily a great defensive catcher as far as throwing out base runners. I think Ben said in his article he hasn't thrown any of the 12 base runners that have attempted to steal on him yet this year. So basically you're not really looking for power from Andrews. You're just looking for him to get on base and get a stolen base. Whereas then Desmond, you're looking for him to provide you some power. So both are options, and it just depends on how the rest of your lineup's constructed, and if you're looking for power or if you're looking for a guy to get on base and steal a bag or two for you.
Okay. Are there any other shortstops you guys want to talk about? No?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much my list.
Well, this is the point of the
I
show.
mean, you
when we're-
could punt with like Cliff Pennington. If you want to go cheap.
Nah. There's
Nah.
there's like real opportunity cost there today because there actually are shortstops worth using. Okay, well, this is the part of the show where we're supposed to do the Napster Man contest, but he's not here today. So we're just going to move right on to first base, third base. Normally positions that are pretty important. I feel like you kind of just have to nail your first base pick in cash games, like on a nightly basis. It's really pretty important. So, Joey Votto, top option? Question mark?
Absolutely. Period.
Correct.
Yeah, I like Edwin Jackson in certain contexts, but, he's, a little bit above average, at best. Votto's really good. He's at home. I think Votto's a good pick today. I think Adrian Gonzalez is a solid alternative. And I think, I don't know. Morneau maybe, but his price tag just has kind of been up lately, so maybe I'll leave him out.
What about you, Tuttle?
Yeah, pretty much mentioned all the guys. Fielder's another option who is just absolutely dirt cheap on DraftKings. I think he's $3,400 on DraftKings, and that's why I kind of like the Rangers stack, especially on some of the sites where a lot of their salaries are depressed. Like Fielder, you can get for $3,400 on DraftKings. You can get Mitch Moreland for some decent power for $3,200. Andrews is $3,800. So you can kind of do a mini Texas stack with some of those bats that their prices are extremely deflated, and then fill in with some of the bigger bats you want to fill in if you want to go cargo or too low. It gives you that option, which is kind of why I like them as an option to stack tonight.
Why are you on so many Rangers tonight, Tuttle? Is it because actually I don't know.
Because Jesse Chavez
Chavez is a pretty good pitcher.
He's decent. I think he's overperforming, or he was to start the year. He kind of came back down against Houston last start out. I guess it's kind of hard to say how good he will actually be in the starter's role. But basically, I just like I said, I like their prices a lot. And there's really not a whole lot of other pitchers to pick on other than if you're going, the Washington route or the Oakland route. So you do have to find some filler bats in there somewhere, and I think Texas gives you that opportunity against Chavez.
I think, honestly, the choice that you make between those two dictates your strategy for this next position, because I think the top two hitters at third base are Donaldson and Beltre. Beltre is, significantly cheaper everywhere, but if you think that Chavez is a good pitcher, you might be a little bit less willing to take Beltre at, a medium-ish price and just take Donaldson against a pitcher that we just know isn't that great, has a track record of mediocrity. Now, Donaldson is pretty expensive, though, so if you're paying up for him, you're making a decision that, you think he's going to have a very good night. Which side of that do you fall on, Derek?
It's hard because of the price gap. I mean, I do like Donaldson better, so if you have the money to do it, I'm definitely in the Donaldson camp. But, depending where you're playing, if Beltre is cheap enough, I could see, you know what, screw it, just pay up for Donaldson.
Just pay up. You're on that side of it?
I am.
Okay, Tuttle, which side are you on?
I think Donaldson's clearly the better option if you can fit him into your roster. But I just don't think, depending on how you go construct your lineup, where you're going with pitching, I think it's going to be hard to fit him into your roster. And so then I think Beltre is clearly the number 2 choice, and I have no problem rostering him by any means.
See, if I come off of Tulowitzki in my cash games, I can fit Donaldson in basically no problem on every site. And so I think that's probably what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to work Desmond in there and kind of just stack the Nationals infield across the board. And so I would much rather take Donaldson, except on Draft Street. He's more expensive than Yordano Ventura on Draft Street. So I don't think that's a move anyone's necessarily looking to make. Are there any other corner infielders you guys would like to mention, third baseman or first baseman?
Santana's on a tear.
He is on a tear. I noted that on the player news page today. Hot streaks don't exist, but if you believe in them.
Exactly.
Does
Exactly. If you're one of the guys that want to play the streaks,
does Tyler Moore qualify at first base
he
anywhere?
does.
Well,
On
then I like him.
FanDuel, 2,200.
Oh, that's really tempting to pass up today. I mean, he's batting fifth. He's got the whole Oberholzer Minute Maid Park platoon advantage thing going on for him.
See, the thing with him, it's very short in his career, so there's not a huge sample size, but he actually has shown more power against right-handed pitching.
Yeah. Let me.
How many plate
Let me pull up
appearances
my
is it
thing for
over?
him. But
It's very. I mean, you're looking at a small sample size. I'd have to go back and see how many plate appearances. But I remember thinking, because last year he only got in against left-handed pitchers. So
Yeah.
obviously the thought is he's a better hitter against left-handed pitching, and I'm sure he is. But in his short sample that we've had, he's actually been significantly better against right-handed pitchers.
yeah, my system, which takes into account how much data we have and regresses it and everything, basically has him with a league average platoon split, just because the sample is small. You have to regress it super far. So
Mhm.
I like him in that matchup today.
All right. That is solid advice. He was not even on my radar at all.
Well, it's a decision then on like FanDuel or I think on DraftKings he's multi-position
And
eligible.
he's not a bad player either. I mean, he does have power. Like,
Is he a high K guy?
yeah, but so if you're playing on a site, where you're losing points for Ks, maybe not as good of an option. But he's got power. He's got a good matchup. He's batting fifth, and he's cheap. So
Yeah.
All right.
TJ points out that he's first base outfield eligible on DraftKings. So
I think there are too many outfield options to consider using him on DraftKings.
It just depends, doesn't it? I mean, when you're talking about DraftKings, most of the times you're talking about their tournaments and your stacks where you can play up to 6 players, and then you have to fill in the
7.
gaps. No, it's 6.
It's 7.
7. 6?
7.
What are you talking about?
You can play 7 hitters from the same team on DraftKings.
It's 6.
It's 6.
No, because you...
Okay.
I guarantee it's 6.
Davis is taking into account that there's 9 players on the field, but he's forgetting the fact that pitchers do not count as hitters. So we're just going to let him slide with that. I do want to correct you, though, on this point as far as whatever team that you decide to stack or mini stack, there's going to be holes. Like, generally, the outfield is going to be the place where you're going to have a lot of your power bats. Sometimes, though, however, when you get teams with powerful infills that you want to use, or you want to go with a high-priced pitcher, sometimes you're only going to have like 2 lefty bats or 2 righty bats that are in good spots in the outfield, and then you can use a cheap guy to free up some of that interior fielding space. That's just from what I've seen, but I mean, you're definitely wrong about the 7 players. I'd like to get Tuttle's.
All right, well,
I'd like
everyone
to
in
get
chat
Tuttle's
can...
opinion.
I'm not going to swear. I'm not going to do it.
No, we can have math class later. I want to get Tuttle's opinion on basically the outfield and the if it's basically with your stacks and playing certain positions for cheap. Like, Tuttle, would you rather go expensive or cheap, I guess, in stacks for the outfield if you had to play a person from another team?
Expensive or cheap on what? Because to be honest, when I'm looking at a stack, I'm not. It's hard to classify. I guess I don't have one set way if I'm looking, to go cheap infield or expensive outfield. It's just going to depend each night on the matchups. I wouldn't say I have one set way of looking at it.
Yeah. So no, I would. I mean, that's kind of my point, is that every situation is different.
Yeah.
But I was curious though, as far as like if you had the choice of going cheap outfield or power outfield with your pitcher options, where you would go for GPPs. But I guess that you're saying it's dependent on what the situation is.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's really hard to classify and just generalize it. Like on DraftKings, you actually get a lot of guys outfield eligible that are just really cheap in general. So I see myself not really spending on outfield on DraftKings. I mean, you have a lot of you have Sam Fulp that you can get for 5,100 on DraftKings if you really want. But
It's a bargain, dude. It's a total bargain.
It is a bargain. But you'll see guys, they do have like a recency bias, especially, and then even guys coming off like injury. So like on DraftKings today, you can get Cespedes for $3,200. So when you can get guys like that on DraftKings and on most sites, you can do the same. There's really not a whole lot of reason to pay on outfield because the player pool in that position is significantly bigger. So you're going to get a lot of more guys that are decent bargains out there.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Before we move to outfield discussion, though, we have our stat of the day, which is that Troy Tulowitzki leads the league in isolated slugging and also in weighted on-base average. And his lead in ISO, he is 25 points higher than the next highest batter, which is Jose Abreu. So just a little nugget there to consider when you're constructing your lineups tonight. Tulowitzki, I know it's just hard for me not to take him right now when he's playing so well. He's seeing the ball so well, you guys. Seeing the ball so well.
So that's the point as far as like what price is too high for him, because his price keeps on climbing. It's like how Miggy was last year, kind of. At what point do you not pay up for Tulo when he has decent matchups? That's the question that I have.
I mean, he's not there yet on FanDuel. He's too high on DraftKings.
But is he though? I mean, that's when you're talking about the positional value. That is the question I have. I mean, yeah, he is like 2.5 times more than another decent shortstop, or not decent, but low price punt play shortstop. So do you want to save that and apply it to your pitcher or outfield, or do you want to go cheap somewhere where you have to play him? That is, I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. I guess it depends on if you're playing him or not, really. But that's the question that I have.
I don't think there is a price. I think, like you said, it's just completely on the positional value that day. So like on DraftKings, where we're talking about him being 5,700, you can get Desmond for 3,800. So where there's that big of a difference when you can get a pretty solid shortstop option when you normally can't for 3,800, I think you go Desmond, no brainer. And so Tulo, I guess you would consider too high to pay for on tonight. But it really just depends on what your other options are for that position on a given day.
Yeah. Okay. I would agree with that.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about outfield. Who are your guys' favorite outfielders for tonight? Derek?
I like Jason Worth a lot tonight. I like Cespedes a lot tonight. I think Morse and Pence are solid options. I like Jay Bruce is pretty good. Andre Ethier, pretty good tonight. Gerardo Parra, I like.
Talk to me about Billy Hamilton tonight.
Oh, Hamilton's on my list too. Hamilton's solid. Hamilton has. I'm not going to take credit for noticing this. Harold Reynolds was talking about it on MLB Tonight last night. Basically, when Hamilton was struggling earlier in the year, he'd open his stance more, and he was kind of having trouble getting to certain balls. And he's closed it back up the way he was in the minors. And it's not like in the minors he was like a great hitter, but he was a good enough hitter. And now he's kind of closed his stance back up. He's a little more compact. He's, getting to the ball better. So, this recent kind of, if you want to call it a hot streak he's been on, I'm kind of buying into a little bit. I like Hamilton. He's got great speed. He's got a solid matchup tonight. I think Hamilton's a very viable option.
Okay, because he is like he's a pretty divisive player, but like on a night where he has a really good game, he's gonna have a really good game. Because like a game where he just gets on base twice, he could have 10 fantasy points. Mm-hmm. Like and he's I know he's getting caught stealing, but that he has the greenest of lights. When he gets on base, he can just go. So I think I actually really like him tonight.
Especially GPP play, like he's.
Yeah. Tuttle, talk to me about some outfielders.
Well, you pretty much just listed everyone that I have on my list. we talked about Cespedes, and there's a question in chat if I'm worried about him being banged up. I'm not, especially for his price on DraftKings where he's 3,200. I didn't see his plate appearances last night, but it looks like he walked 2 times and then got a hit. So he had one official at bat where he got a hit, and seeing him walk twice is actually really good because he's actually seeing the ball. When he's struggling, he's swinging at a lot of strikes out of the strike, or a lot of pitches out of the strike zone. So I don't have a problem with him, or I'm not really concerned about him coming off an injury. Worth, obviously, left-handed crusher. I don't know if you mentioned Carlos Gonzalez. He's someone that I think in places where his price has deflated, I think he's certainly an option tonight. I think he's 4,000 on DraftKings. I think that's playable.
Derek, what do you think about that? Because I'm sort of just anti-taking guys when they're hurt, because I think that's like a contextual factor that doesn't make its way into their price or their projection. But like as human beings with intuition, we can use that information, but I just struggle as to like what to do with it.
Yeah, it's definitely something you have to take into consideration and kind of manually adjust your projection and your projected price for. And especially when you consider that he's on the road in a lesser park against, I don't know, Cole Mentor. Cole Mentor's not a bad pitcher. He maybe has some issues after he goes through the lineup once or twice because he's better suited for relief, I feel. Cargo's not a bad play tonight, but I don't think I'm going to pay what it takes to get him, especially, given kind of all the lingering concerns with him.
What do you think about Blackman leading off versus him tonight? He should get a chance to see Cole Mentor 3 times, and then I don't know what is Arizona's bullpen like. I guess I don't actually know.
Arizona's bullpen isn't. Actually, let me take a look. Hold on.
Because with the way that.
No, go ahead.
Well, while he's looking, just would like to mention Cargo's price is up everywhere except DraftKings, where he's 4K.
Arizona's bullpen actually is very good, it looks like. There's a lot of good guys in that pen, especially... What are we looking at here?
Yeah, and Tuttle, while he's looking at that...
There's a lot of good in that pen.
We just got a question about Craig Gentry in chat. He's leading off versus Robbie Ross. Any consideration there?
Yeah, he's a solid
in the middle
option.
Of typing a response. Yeah, he's a consideration, but he's kind of an batting average speed kind of guy. So he's not getting the same benefit as someone like Cespedes is from the huge park change. And Ross is a solid pitcher, even though I question his ability to consistently get out right-handed batters. Gentry is a consideration because he's cheap and because he has a good lineup spot. But I'm not all over him or anything.
Okay.
What about you,
I
Tuttle?
think that makes sense.
He's a guy that's going to get platooned for, too, towards the end of the game. So you have to take that into consideration when you're trying to project him, too. He can be a solid option. If they're putting a hurting on him, he's going to stay in the game. If they're up by quite a bit, he'll get all his full complement of at-bats. But if the game's close at all and the lefty comes in, righty comes in, I should say, then he's not going to stay in the game.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm going to regret this segment. I'd like to know all 3 of you guys as far as the guy that you're looking to either fade or play that you think that you are going to regret later on.
Super easy.
Well, it's been like in the past, typically the I'm going to regret this has either been like really good or really bad. So there's been some extreme cases. Cardi, who are you going to regret playing tonight?
Regret playing or regret fading?
Either one.
I think I'm going to regret fading.
Eovaldi.
I think I think I'm going to regret fading Cingrani. He has a really good matchup, but his price tag's a little higher than I'd like to see, and I think there's other guys I'm going to go with, even though he is set up in such a way that he can do well.
Who are you taking if you're not taking Cingrani?
That's not part of the segment, Davis.
Fine,
taking
whatever.
Zimmerman.
Okay, that's right. My bad.
We super glossed over Zimmerman earlier, but he's top of my list tonight.
Okay. Tuttle.
Especially cash games.
Who am I going to regret fading or taking? Posey, I'm going to regret fading.
Oh, yeah. On nights when I think it's actually a rule in MLB. On nights when he's under 5% owned on FanDuel, he hits a home run. Like that's like how it goes. I actually just moved him out of my lineup for Norris too.
Yeah, I'm almost positive I'll be writing Norris, and I'm going to regret it.
I can definitely see that too, because I will probably be on Norris tonight.
Awesome. Let's all three do it, and then we can just like be really upset on Twitter later.
Oh,
That'll be
man.
fun.
Norris train. Who are you regretting, Davis?
Eovaldi. The games haven't even started. I'm already regretting it. So
Playing
it's
him?
gonna be really bad once the games start.
Playing him?
Yeah, he's in my cash lineup on FanDuel right now, and I don't think he's coming out.
Typically, when you mention a player who you're going to play that everyone thinks you're crazy, typically it doesn't work out for you.
No, it doesn't, because it's like ignoring stats, which are like one of my favorite things. But
Right.
like, Eovaldi throws hard and he's fun. Plus, the Marlins are like my girlfriend team. Like the Royals are my wife, but the Marlins are my girlfriend. And it's like sometimes you just want to have a night out with the mistress,
No, I do not know. So on that note, let's talk about the marriage between you and Tuttle on the daily fantasy elite draft.
Well, he cheated.
How?
I didn't cheat. I went to the waiver wire. That's
Okay, well,
that's part of that. That's part of the app.
Well, what happened is that the app was not updated for the pitchers for tonight. And so Tuttle and I get done with the draft, and then all of a sudden Singrani becomes available, and we're both scrambling to get there. But I have this broken iPhone screen, so my screen doesn't work as well, and Tuttle got to Singrani first, and is bullshit.
Dan, can you confirm this?
I didn't cheat. I got Singrani first, but
Yeah.
did it completely fairly.
That is some underhanded shit.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
So I have Greinke and Singrani on my team, and Chu and Cespedes, because they were both mid-price.
Yeah.
And basically, moral of the story is Davis just doesn't have a chance.
Yeah, that's what you said last time, bruh. But I have Votto and Donaldson and Jay Bruce, so that's like 9 dongs right there.
Yeah, I think I like Davis's hitters a lot better from the looks of it.
I also have Leonis Martin, so
Chu, I mean, as far as top pick of the day, Tuttle probably will say Singrani, but man, Chu at 5K for minimum salary, he lets you fit it all in. You know what I'm saying?
Chu versus Cespedes for minimum price.
Yeah, Cespedes for minimum price is ridiculous.
So between those two, would you go Cespe or Chu, Davis?
I just think Cespedes is a better ball player.
So Cespedes, okay. Dan?
I think it goes Cespe. I think Chu actually did get pulled for a runner last night. I think it was more because the game was a blowout, but I don't think you're not going to get the stolen base potential that you're used to with Chu tonight, I don't think.
Agree or disagree, Derek?
I agree with, Cespedes. Cespedes easily the better play at that level. I think they're comparable in terms of overall talent, and I think Cespedes' matchup tonight is far superior.
Well, very nice. I think that Tuttle probably, with his underhandedness, has
right, dude? Isn't he the worst?
The upper hand in this. So, yeah. Basically,
how has no one taken John Murphy on FanDuel and won a GPP yet?
Because he never played. Yeah, I don't think he's played any games since he was priced at 4,000.
I'm gonna take him tonight in my cash games.
Do it. I actually, whenever the rainouts occurred, I put a lot more into cash games because I am banking on the fact that there are going to be a few fishies out there that are going to be playing. I mean, you got 4 possible games.
It happened last night, and it was beautiful because my team was not that good, but I took a bunch of money in 3-mans because people were playing like Ryan Braun and stuff last night.
And because you have good matchups tonight also with some of those rained out games. So I'm banking on the fact that I have maybe a slight edge than the normal average Joe. Not for tournament games, but for cash games. What was also interesting last night, Matt Cain was still 22% owned in the DraftKings Big Score, which is a $200 entry, was a $100,000 tournament.
Was it called the Big Score, Dave?
No, it wasn't called the Big Score. It
Okay,
was called
that's
the
what I
Perfect
thought.
Game. It was called the Perfect Game. Sorry, Davis.
Hey, dude, don't apologize to me. Apologize to the site, man.
Oh, sorry, DraftKings, for obviously just saying that you had another site's name, and more than that, that Davis thought that you could play 7 players instead of 6.
God damn it.
Anyways, 22% in a high roller game, it just surprised me. It surprised me a lot. I know it's late swap, and I know no one was expecting the scratch, but definitely was interesting. That's all.
Honestly, I'm just frustrated that Tommy G didn't have any shares. That was like the worst part. Was that Tommy G didn't have him on like Draft Street or something.
You wanted some complaints on Twitter?
I mean, I have loved DFS Twitter just being like just burning like Rome the last 2 days. It's been wonderful. And like that would have made it even like all much more worse, because that's really the only we've had the should pros play in low dollar games. We've had the multi-entry, single entry. So the only fight that hasn't happened has been the late swap fight. We got to step it up.
We've had the late swap site before. I mean, that's not like a different.
No, just the same conversation again. Just again.
Oh yeah, I'd love that. That'd be great.
It's so fun.
All right, let's wrap this bad boy up.
Well, I think that's it. Do we have anything else we need to talk about?
Good way to go out. Right?
Oh,
Go
man.
Avalanche. Everyone tune in tonight. It's going to be trill as fuck.
Oh
All
God!
right, all right, we're done. We're out. We're out here.
All right,
Before
do want to
Davis
say
gets
thanks
those
to
complaints.
Fantasy Elite for sponsoring the show. Again, they have all the NBA games happening. I know Davis is sad panda because Memphis took a 3-2 lead over them. NBA games have been cray-cray, and you can get in a bunch. You can go to fantasyelite.com/leaderboard to see the top of the leaderboard, and it's not too late to get in for that $1,000 free roll. But yeah, that'll be it. Tomorrow we'll have Davis on again instead of Laufey. We're doing a little bit of a schedule change where Davis is taking Thursdays and Laufey is taking Mondays. But Davis, Knapp, and Tuttle in what will surely be a fun show. So thanks, guys. Watch out for the rain. If you haven't seen it yet, now you have. Pirates, Orioles, Mariners, Yankees, Mets, Phillies, Rays, Sox, and risky games, Dodgers and Twins. I do think that Blue Jays and Royals game gets in. But that'll do it. We'll leave you with this Coldplay song and this great picture of a new movie coming out. I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy it. Later.
Drew looks so dang sexy in that pic.
It's pretty great.
This is perfect music for it. You know how I know you're gay?
That wasn't Step Brothers. That was
I know, but still.
what movie is that? Oh, it's the 40-Year-Old Virgin.
40-year-old virgin.
Yeah.
You watch Coldplay. Was it Coldplay and something about your jeans?
Yeah, they kept going back and forth.
All right, guys. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Damn, Tuttle!
I just made that. The one time you didn't